And frankly, we should have all been dead. It was incredibly lucky that we survived that. I mean, we went off a 30-foot embankment, but it landed just right where we all survived. So I think that gave me a little appreciation of living.
Welcome to Your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski. Super excited today. I just love how I can bring you things that you are interested in listening to, but also that I'm interested in as well. And today is certainly no exception. I met Paul Neville, who's my guest, through a podcasting group and website, and I was really attracted to what he had to say because he's somebody that's traveled a lot. And some of you may know, some of you may not, but I'm getting ready to travel internationally in a couple of weeks on a pretty big trip over to Thailand and Bali. And this gentleman has traveled a lot and he's learned a lot. So I'm excited to have him here and talk about what he's learned in his travels and really how that's impacted his life and how he just, again, shares that with other people and really encourages people to create some habits to live a joyful life. And, if you listen to my podcast, that's what I'm all about, is creating a joyful life. So, Paul, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's get started and let's talk about your travels. And I feel like I know that, as I've shared with you, my travel is for the purpose of a retreat. And then since I'm going halfway across the world, it seems to make sense to spend a little bit more time and see some other parts of the world over there. So I just would love for you to start, as I ask my other guests, start with your story. Like, how did travel start coming about for you? And, we'll start there.
Sure. Yeah. For a long time, I was trying to figure out if my passion for travel came from something that I was born with, or if it's something I sort of adopted over the years. I'm thinking it was probably a combination. And it's a pretty powerful combination because travel has essentially shaped the course of my life. You mentioned the impact of travel on my life, but it was way more than that. It was a direction of my life. And I didn't have a ton of it growing up. I grew up near Seattle in a town called Issaquah. It's about 30 minutes east of Seattle. And a pretty stable suburban upbringing with caring parents and an older brother and a younger brother. Now, we had some adventures growing up. Much of it was really self-made. We lived in sort of a forested neighborhood, and we spent a lot of time exploring the trees and the trails and camping and whatnot. My parents were big into outdoor activities, so we did a lot of backpacking. We did bike trips, but nothing particularly exotic. When I was 16 years old, my dad did take me on a work trip to London. He worked for Boeing and he had a conference out there. So I tagged along, and suddenly the whole world opened up because I learned about, the British culture, British cuisine, British history, British architecture. And, it's not, again, particularly exotic, but it was enough of a difference that really had me interested to learn more. And that's really where it all began. For another 6 years or so, I finished at University of Washington. I graduate and I joined the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is the thing that I thought would sort of get it out of my system. It would get my fix of having an international experience. And then I'd come back home and carry on with my pretty regular traditional life, which would have been fine. But what happened was, when I was in Tonga, the South Pacific island country of Tonga, really far away in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, When I was there as a Peace Corps volunteer, everything changed. And despite my efforts to try to have that as a temporary experience, it wasn't. It was permanent. It exponentially changed the course of my life. In Tonga, it was initially a very challenging experience. Like I said, I had a pretty stable upbringing, and this was about polar opposite of everything that I've ever known. It was always hot, whereas the Seattle area, it's a pretty cool climate. The Americans, and I think even more so in the Pacific Northwest, we tend to keep to ourselves. There's an independence. There's a certain level of privacy that we kind of accept in our lives or appreciate. But in Tonga, it was the opposite. It was a very communal, which is wonderful in many ways, but it means that I essentially didn't have privacy for 2 years. The food was very different. There were insects all the time because it was a tropical climate. There was just so much that was so unbelievably different that the first few months were really hard. I mean, I called home a few times trying not to cry to my parents, trying to have a strong voice when I was talking to them on the phone, because I wanted to show them that I was, courageous and I was going to get through this. But yeah, it was really tough. But of course, as I carried on, I started to learn the language and understand the culture and appreciate that sense of tight community that the Tongans are famous for. And then I realized it made me a better person. And it made me more interested in learning about more cultures and learning about new places. And then I kept on going. So after I finished the Peace Corps, I used all of my life savings. I worked hard throughout college as a waiter and a yard worker and landscaper before that in high school. I had some money saved up, and I blew it all on a year-long trip around the world. And that's what the book is about. That's what I wrote about. And I went through Southeast Asia, I went through Northern Europe, and I went through South America for a year. And it was a phenomenal experience. Of course, there were hardships. I faced challenges in terms of, some petty crimes, some dangerous roads, some illness, but ultimately it was a profoundly positive experience. And frankly, the hardships just made that experience even more impactful. So yeah, I came home after that. I had been away from home 3 years, and my parents, they saw me, they picked me up at the airport, and I said, okay, now what? And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to travel some more. And I haven't really stopped, to be honest. I mean, it is a driving force of my life. I'm now a foreign service officer. We live in the Netherlands. I'm married now with 3 young boys. And guess what? They love to travel too. Mm-hmm. So as much as we can, we're out and about. But yeah, that's really my journey of my journeys. That's how the travel began, from a rather, stable and not dramatically eventful childhood to basically a lifelong travel addict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great. And so many of us, we, start out our life like you did in the beginning. We are born, we grow up in a suburb or city or whatever. And many people just stay there. And that is the world that they create. And that's fine. That's okay. And sometimes, at least for my case, and I may have shared this with you in our pre-call, I'm not sure, but, I was diagnosed with breast cancer about 1.5 years ago. And, it really woke me up to a lot of things in life. Like, I'm 61, and, when you get a diagnosis, it's like, wow, some people die from this. And do I really want to die, or do I really want to live? And, it also makes me think of Brendan Bouchard, who had, if you know him, a great speaker and writer and motivational guy. He was in a terrible accident, and he said that that's what he thought of as he was in that midst of almost dying. And it's like, have I lived, and have I loved? And so he's made it his life mission to go and live and love. And similar to me, it's like, okay, I've been thinking, like, I need to live. Like, when you start to, when you get hit 30 or hit 60, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of on the last chapter, I hate to say that, last chapter, last semester or whatever. I hope to live many, many, many more years, but I love to travel, and it really has made me think like, I got to go see more of the world. And in addition to that, I remember growing up and, European history and all those kind of things. Like I just didn't have any interest in learning about that. And then as I started to travel a little bit, and I've traveled a lot in the United States, but not really a lot internationally. Like when my husband took me to Paris for my 50th birthday, it was so evident to me. I'm like, wow, look at there's history, and they live within the history. And it's just so beautiful. And I really was my husband's always been interested in the history and stuff like that. But all of a sudden I started to be really intrigued by, wow, look at this. And why is this church still standing? Or what was the history of this church? It was just really an eye opener to be like, wow, there's just so much to see in the world. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm actually reflecting right now about some things that happened when I was younger. I talked about, what was the origin of this? Was it nurture or nurture? I think, like I said, I think it was a combination of both. I do think that being the middle child had something to do with it. The middle child is often the one who is, how do we describe, maybe more energetic, maybe more adventurous sometimes. And now I have 3 boys, and the middle child fits that description. He's very much like me. So that may have contributed to it. But there were a couple life events, actually. When I was 16 years old, I was in a terrible car accident. There were 6 of us, and we were all 16. And there was really no fault. There was some inexperience of the driver, but there was no drugs or alcohol or anything. He just missed the turn. And frankly, we should have all been dead. It was incredibly lucky that we survived that. I mean, we went off a 30-foot embankment, but it landed just right where we all survived. So I think that gave me a little appreciation of living. And then 2 years later, actually, a friend of mine, a neighbor who grew up across the street, died in a motorcycle accident. So I experienced death quite early. And now, I mean, really, right now, as we're talking about this, I'm pretty sure that had a significant impact on me in terms of how I live my life. And when you say, you're focusing on really living now, I think I had that revelation way back then at 16 and then 18. I think I told myself at that point, probably subconsciously, if I'm just now putting it together, I think back then I was like, okay, I've got to do absolutely everything to enjoy every moment of now. And because it was shortly after that, I started traveling and haven't looked back since. And then one more thing related to this, skip ahead 20 or so years. And during COVID, which was traumatic for the whole world, all of us, my family and I were in Thailand at the time. And we were assigned to Bangkok. So we're living in Bangkok, but the entire city shut down. And I mean, we had an apartment. We had 2 small kids. We now have a baby. So there's 3 now, but at the time it was just 2. And that apartment was too small to be locked inside for days, weeks, or months at a time. So we packed up the car and we drove all the way down to Phuket. It was about a 12-hour drive. So that we went down to the island of Phuket, and we didn't know how long we were going to be there. Was it just going to be for a week, a couple of weeks? I was able to work remotely for a couple months. So we stayed there for a couple months. The kid actually enrolled in the school there. And then I started commuting back and forth to work at the embassy. But in total, my family was there for a year. And it was a strange time, but we made the best of our circumstance. And there was a moment, it was just a few weeks in, when it felt like the whole world was shut down, but we found a beach. The kids were playing in front of us. There was a sunset, and my wife and I had a margarita in our hand. And we looked at each other and we're like, okay, this is how you live. This is how you find joy in a difficult situation. And I don't remember if it was that moment or around then, but we came up with a little motto in our life. The acronym is LEMON. Love every moment of now. I mean, it really is carpe diem.
Yep.
And so now, if you look around our house, you'll see a lot of lemons. There's a lemon theme in my family. Yellow is a popular color in my family. But that's it. Yeah. So those three experiences really reinforced that idea that you're talking about of how to live life to the fullest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and they had in the paper a couple of days ago or last week or whatever. It's like the 5-year anniversary of when the world, shut down. And like you said, we weren't sure, was it going to be a week, a couple of weeks, or what was it? And then it turned into whatever that was.
Yeah.
Just crazy, Yeah. But I knew people who did that. They left here. I'm in the Midwest, and they left and they went to some Caribbean island, or they went to their beach house that they only went to in the summertime, and they lived there and found a way to, like you said, make the best of the circumstances that all of a sudden we were, forced into. And I think that that's a beautiful message for people. Certainly one of the great messages for people to hear. I mean, we know that there's, chaos in our life and things that we're juggling and we can't be in control of. And then what can we do? What are the choices? We can make the best of the situation, that we're in. And we were kind of forced into into that, during the pandemic. And what an interesting time for sure. And with my father passing in December, and I was the medical person, so I was taking him around to his appointments. I knew most about his medical care and his decline and all of those issues. And I didn't know about his money situation. And my sister did, and I didn't know his will and all that. But regardless, in the end, he had a bunch of money left over. So he gave some to some charities, and he gave some to his grandchildren, and he gave the rest to me and my 3 other siblings. And so it's a pretty good amount of money in my eyes. And it really was, as I've reflected on it and the death of my father and the grief that I'm feeling and the loss that I'm feeling from him. And just this also, like, again, I want to live. Like, he gave me, I miss him and I missed our conversations and together, but he gave me, with that money, he gave me a gift to go and live. And so that's really how I'm looking at the travel too. This first big trip that I'm taking, it's to honor my father, and I'm packing my journal and I'm putting a picture of him in there, and I'm going to take him with. And I love this lemon thing. I think I'm going to write lemon on there so I remember that, because I want to love and live every moment that I experience, from, experiencing the really cool prestige level of travel in Delta Airlines, in Korean Air. I'm going to be able to lay down and sleep, hopefully. And, just every little moment of that, seeing the elephants and being in Bangkok. I heard that that's a chaotic, busy city and things like that. But just honoring my father, that he's given me, he's passed on, but he's given me a gift to continue this, idea and this mission of me to go and live my life. And it's really, I feel very honored to be able to, to honor him in the travels that I go on.
Yeah, well, I think he'd be happy to hear that you're doing this. I'm sorry about his passing. I know that's hard, but I mean, what a way to honor him. That's truly wonderful. And I know travel has been an important part of my life, but and it works for me. But I'm also a really big advocate for others as well. And I do acknowledge that travel isn't easy. I mean, most people have busy lives and you have to schedule around it. So you have to take time off work. And then, of course, there's the cost. And so it is prohibitive for some, especially the big trips or far away trips. But if it's possible, I strongly encourage everyone to travel in some capacity. And that can even mean nearby, locally. For me, travel isn't necessarily getting on a plane and exploring a new place that you've never been in a different culture with different currency and different foods. Travel can be just exploring somewhere that is new to you, even if it's nearby. And I mentioned that I grew up in sort of a forested suburban neighborhood. A lot of my travel as a child was just exploring with trails or sometimes no trails, the forest that lived behind our house. I mean, it was connected to a whole mountain range. So it was the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. And we lived on the base of Tiger Mountain. And we spent probably thousands of hours walking around, biking around, camping. And that was so thrilling. Maybe that was the origin of, again, I don't know what the exact origin of my travel passion is, but maybe that was it. Yeah. So travel in any capacity, I think, is very therapeutic, healing, and wonderful in many ways for many people. And part of it is just getting out of your normal routine. Now, again, I've had some big trips, big, wild, crazy, adventurous trips. And for those people who have that in them and have the resources, strongly advocate for doing that. And I'm very excited that you are going to some of my favorite places in the world. Bali is wonderful. The people there are very friendly and warm and welcoming. The culture is fascinating and the climate is great. The scenery is beautiful. I'm a big fan of Bali, but Thailand is unparalleled. I've had 2 foreign service assignments there, one in Chiang Mai, one in Bangkok. And then I spent, that year in Phuket. And yeah, I would call myself a Thaiophile. There's something magical about the entire country, and each region is special and it's on its own merit. The Thai people are some of the friendliest on the planet, and they're not just friendly to get tips because they're supposed to, because it's part of their job description. It's in their heart. They truly are welcoming. And that's why it's known as the land of smiles. And it's also why the tourism industry is booming, because I have traveled now to over 120 countries, and I've never been to a country where the people are so sincerely friendly and welcoming. There's all kinds of reasons why that could be. It could be, they've never been colonized. So there's a little less, historical anxiety about foreigners. It could be the Buddhist religion. It's a Buddhist country. It could be the fantastic food. Everybody's eating well. That certainly can make you happy. And it can be the sun. It can be the elephants. There's just so many reasons. But you'll see. It's a magical, wonderful place. I encourage everybody who can to go visit it. And you'll have many different experiences in different places. Again, I spent 5 years of my life there so far. I was working, so I was busy with that. But when I wasn't, we were constantly exploring and learning about new places. And it was never ending. I could certainly live the rest of my life there and not get to everything that Thailand has to offer.
Brought to you by Gorski Wellness and the possibility of a better you. Are you feeling sluggish? Ready for a change? Need more energy? Up for a bigger challenge? I'm Moyra Gorski, retired nurse and wellness advocate. For over 22 years, I've been helping people live healthier lives while making small changes each and every day. Those small changes lead my clients to living a healthier lifestyle with markedly better health. As a brand ambassador for the Shaklee Corporation, the most clinically proven wellness company in the world, I guide my clients to make healthier choices each day with their food, supplements, skincare, workouts, and mindset. They say getting started is half the battle. Let's make healthy happen together. If you're ready for simple, natural, sustainable solutions to feeling and looking your best, let's connect. You'll find a link in the show notes or reach out to me at moyragorski.com. Here's to a better you. Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for sharing all of that. And I didn't know that. I just said to my friend who's traveling early with me before the retreat, I said, I don't know, let's go to Thailand. I think there's elephants there. I want to see an elephant. I want to be around, be enveloped by the elephant. Let's go to Thailand. So again, I've shared that with others. And yes, I didn't know it was such a destination to go to. And we're not going to be going there. But somebody told me the other day when they were there, I don't know if it's Phuket, but you probably know, you go to a place with the water and you can run your hands through it and it lights up or something because there's some kind of, what is that? I don't, is that Do you know what I'm speaking
Yeah,
of?
I think it's an algae. I haven't seen it myself. I've just heard of it. So it's like glow in the dark
The algae,
algae
yeah, glow in the dark
that
algae. Yeah.
lights up when you move, especially at night. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's just one of
All
a
kinds of cool.
thousand
Yeah.
just magical places that you'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, I've talked with another friend of mine who has traveled a lot, and we talked about running races. I'm kind of given up my running shoes. I do more hiking, but he travels to places and does running races. My husband and I used to do that when we would vacation. We'd find a running race that we could participate in. But, you talked a little bit before about just, again, connection and life and culture and things like that. Are there, and you've talked about community in the Tonga. Are there things that stuck out to you as you went to those different, you said you went to Southeast Asia, you went to someplace in Europe and then South America? Like, were there similarities in those three different areas, or were there real differences? Things like that. I think that's kind of an interesting, when we go to different places, we can sometimes see the similarities and sometimes see the real stark differences.
Yeah. So I think the lesson about similarities first came from Tonga, was it when I was in the Peace Corps? Because when I got off the plane, all I noticed were differences. And like I said, the contrast between my upbringing in Issaquah, Washington, and then Seattle, where I went to University of Washington, and then Tonga was dramatic. It was jarring and like I said, quite difficult initially. But after a few weeks, I realized, wait a minute, the Tongan people have so many commonalities to the American people that I know. And it eventually got to the point when I was able to fully communicate and speak the language that I made friends that were as important to me in Tonga as those back home. I had the same level of connection. It felt the level, the depth of friendship that I had with the people in my village was equivalent to those back home. And we talked about the same things. We talked about life's dreams and challenges. We talked about, getting married and having kids, just, things that we did for fun, whether it was swimming in the ocean or getting together and socializing in whatever way that looked. In Tonga, they actually sat in a circle and drank kava tea, which was initially a very unusual experience for me. But then later I realized, wait a minute, this is kind of the same thing as gathering around a pool table, with friends back home. It is just a slightly different scenario and atmosphere, but the purpose was the same. It was socializing. It was connecting on a human level. And it seems kind of obvious in retrospect, but as a 23-year-old, that was kind of a profound revelation. Wow, this community lives in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Their history is thousands of years separate from mine. They're very, very different in so many ways, yet on a human level, the connection is the same. And I reinforced that conclusion over and over again in the subsequent travels. Because I wanted to see, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Is that just a coincidence that I'm having this kind of connection with the Tongan people? Or can that kind of connection be made in cultures around the world? And of course, now I look back and the answer is obviously yes. But yeah, from Thailand to Vietnam, by the way, my wife is Vietnamese American. She was born in Vietnam, but grew up in Oklahoma. And then the Northern Europe, we went to Scotland, we went to England, and then all throughout South America. It just happened over and over again. I would meet people and make a connection. There's one chapter in the book, actually, I cover about seeing the mines, the now they're, I think, copper mines, but they were initially gold mines in Potosi, Bolivia. And I don't know if they still offer these tours because it seems pretty dangerous, but they would take us tourists deep underground. I think at one point we were a kilometer underground. We had to hike into this cave for over an hour. And then we came upon some miners who were digging away with hammers. And then at one point they blew up dynamite, which was terrifying because, I mean, it feels like the whole thing's going to collapse on you. But before they lit the dynamite, we had a chance to chat with them. And we were chatting about, dances. And of course, we were young. So we were talking about girls. And I mean, we were laughing like it was anybody else, anywhere else. It was a profound experience. So, yeah. So despite all the differences, we humans still connect on a fundamental human level. One quick thing I will also say, actually, besides the narrative of that, a year that I was traveling, the book also sort of provides a commentary about the community of backpackers. At the time, I was a budget backpacker. Believe it or not, I was living on $10 to $20 a day. I mean, it was 20 years ago, so things were a little cheaper, but right. Living in hostels, hardly ever flying. And everywhere I went, there were backpackers from the States, from Australia, from England, from Germany, from Poland, from Spain, whatever. And it was crazy how similar we were. We were all, looking for something, whether it was the best beach, the best party, spouse, great food, whatever. There was always some sort of search, right? And we were young and we were wide-eyed and we wanted to see the world. And also there was a common value of hoping the world becomes a better place. I mean, I think we all want that, but particularly backpacking youth, that's something that we were all driven by. So I spent a lot of time analyzing the community of global backpackers as well. So there's a little commentary about my experiences with the differences and similarities in my travel.
Yeah. It's interesting. And did you keep a journal? Is that how you were able to then create a book from this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I guess I'm not the first one, but yeah, that's often how these things happen. I was mostly solo traveling. I was mostly on my own. I did meet up with some friends in Vietnam, in Thailand, Indonesia, and then I met up with my parents actually in Northern Europe, and then another friend in Brazil. But I would say of that year, 3/4 of it was on my own. I was a solo traveler, which meant, I had a lot of extra time and I had a lot of thoughts that I couldn't just turn to my left or right and share it. So I had to write it down. So I wrote it down. Then I took the highlights of that and I would send emails back home to friends and family. This was actually pre-blogging days. So I just had a big email distro. And then when I came home, my father, and remember, he was the one who initially inspired me for international travel. He strung all my emails together into a single document. And he said, "Hey, I think you have the beginning of a book here." And I said, "Yeah, all right." And I did. I slowly worked on it. I got a little distracted with, career and family, but I finally finished it earlier this year. And now it's available for everybody to have a look.
Yeah, that's great. As we wrap up, I could listen to you forever. But as we wrap up today, I mean, you talk about just, again, the habits to create, creating habits in our life to make sure that our life is joyful. I mean, I'm a wellness advocate. I help people create healthier habits so that, and just that consistent habits can lead to a healthier and more vibrant life. So what are particular habits that you feel that you want to share that you feel are really important so that people can have a joy-filled life? Be it, I wanted to even mention when you talked about traveling, we moved to, I love what you said, can it just be local? We moved at the end of July to a suburb. It's about 25 minutes west of where we lived for 31 years. And we used to come to this town. I would say, "Oh yeah, I've gone to Geneva and stuff like that." We didn't really come to Geneva that much because it seemed like so far away. But even coming here, I mean, it's just a different environment. And not only that, we're talking about going farther west, like just picking up on a Saturday saying, let's drive because there's some smaller towns west of us, and just going and stopping in the small towns. My husband and I love to go find the diner in the small town that has the best apple pie and the best Reuben sandwich or something like that. You can, and I've even found with myself, just the fact to go walk, we can walk downtown here, which is really fabulous, but just walking and meeting the new stores and the new merchants and things like that, it just can create this newness. Again, you don't have to travel that far. you can find some interesting things and find some newness and some excitement by just not, like you said, not getting on a plane. So anyway, back to the habits too. I'd love for you to share your tips on and your thoughts on, habits that we can create.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of a few as you were talking just now. And honestly, that newness, I think I did write about it at one point, but it's just, there's something about finding new things that I think is healthy for everybody. So, I mean, if that can be a habit, I think that would be a good one. Have a goal, find 3 new things per week, something like that. It can be dramatic and fly across the world to a new country, or it can be try a new coffee shop or talk to a new person. So that's one. Another thing that you said is walking. Oh, I love walking. I mean, that is just something that is universal. In Tonga, they used to call, if you were just walking without really a purpose, just going for a wander, they would call it Ava. Ava. That's EVA. And if you were really going on a long walk, it would be Ava. So after some time, and I got into that habit. I was like, okay, now this part of day that today is time for a walk. And so I just get up and go. I didn't know which direction. And they would say, Paul, where are you going? And I'm like, Ava. I'm just Ava. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And it was great. Everybody did it. So they were very happy to hear that I was on an Ava. I think also having something to look forward to, I think that's a great habit. That's something that I personally must have in my life. And of course, the theme by now for me, that's travel. Mm-hmm. I've got to look forward to the next trip. This weekend, we're going to Berlin. My son has a competition there. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been very excited about going to Berlin. We're actually going to drive there. It's going to be 8 hours drive. So I have that to look forward to. And then when we come back, it'll be a great trip. We're going to love every moment of that trip. We're going to live in that trip. And then when we come back, we're going to think about the next trip. Not sure where that's going to be yet. But getting in the habit of planning something, to have something to look forward to. And then can lemon be a habit in its own?
I think so.
Just wake up and say, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to love every moment now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I would add to that the habit stacking that I talk about, because we create a habit and then, stack another one on top of that. Like every morning I get up and I have hot lemon water. So trust me, I'm going to think about again, I'm having my lemon water, but it's like, okay, I'm going to love every moment of now. And I just love that as a stacking on what I currently do, just adding that. Because I know I'm going to be packing lemons to take with me, because I don't know if you can get lemons over there or whatever, but that's like an important part of my day, of starting my day, is always to have hot lemon water. So I travel with lemons, but so I love that as well. So I think it's great. I think, again, there's so much. I'm glad that we connected, because you've even opened my, mind to thinking of different things too. And I hope that people, as they listen to this, can think that too. Again, we have, as I tell people, everybody has a choice. So if you choose to grow up and stay in the same town that you grew up in, that's your choice too. But there's so much to be seen in the world. And yes, me, who's a bit of a control person, even I've noticed that with planning this trip, I've got to know a little bit of something, right? I wanted to go to see the elephants. That's already paid for. That trip up to Chiang Mai Orchard or whatever that is called.
Yeah.
I mean, that's already paid for. And we're doing the tuk-tuk tour in Bangkok. And so there's some things that I definitely want to do. And so I've set those. But then there's the going with the flow. And it's that just looking forward to something new and taking some good walking shoes and walking around and just being, I just want people to hear the message, because I say it often, just be open. Just to be open to putting your phone down unless you need it for navigation, but just be open to saying hello and a smile, sharing a smile, and be like, hey, what can I learn from today? What can I enjoy for today? What can I love for today? Wherever I'm at, wherever my feet are at, if that's in your hometown or if it's across the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to hear about your trip. I'm a huge advocate of travel, obviously, but I also really love to hear the stories that people have from travel. And brace yourself. It's not going to be 100% paradise and perfect. They're going to have some challenges. It's all part of the journey. But I cannot wait to hear how it goes and the impact it has on your life.
Yeah, thank you. Share, please, where the name of your book and where people can find that and where they can connect with you if they choose to do that as well.
Yeah, so the book is Endless Horizons, A Global Backpacker's Quest for Adventure, Connection, and Discovery. And it can be found on Amazon. So you can do the search Endless Horizons, Paul Neville, and you'll find it. I also have a website, paulwneville.com, and there's more information there.
Yeah. And this popped in my head I know you have your job and, your service and things like that. I was just saying, are you doing anything more than writing a book and just inspiring people that way? Do you do anything else with group travel or connecting with people or encouraging people or in that regard?
I have plans to. Yeah. I mean, it is a busy time with 3 young kids and the job, but I'm starting to build that. I actually have an idea. I actually have applied for an LLC for a company called Lemon Life. And that is the beginning. I mean, you've heard the themes, you know what it's going to be about. I don't know exactly what that's going to be selling or what service it's going to have, but it is the start. This is something that I am planning to build out over the next few years. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we will keep in touch about that. So thank you, Paul, so much for being here. Any last words that you'd like to share with my audience?
Yeah, sure. Lemon. Love every moment of now. And you know the theme. But really, just have that attitude. I mean, we saw that theme from Dead Poets Society, Carpe Diem. That's what it is. Just grab every moment of life and live it to the best that you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's perfect. Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Again, please share this with others, my listeners, because this is a great episode and some great messages here. So thanks again, Paul, for being here. And we'll catch everybody next time. Hey there. Ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, moyragorski.com, or simply email me, moyra@moyragorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy. And that's joy, the journey of you.